Czech Republic. In 1949, archaeologists conducting excavations near this ancient village came upon the remains of a middle-aged woman. Based on the manner in which she was buried and the ritual items discovered with her body, they determined that she was a shaman. And more significantly, the oldest shaman ever discovered, having died roughly 30,000 years ago. Throughout human history and in every culture, shamans have been people who appear to have the ability to communicate with a higher realm, cure the sick, and even see into the future. But perhaps the most astounding of them all is a modern-day prophet from the hills of Kentucky named Edgar Cayce.
Edgar Cayce was arguably the most significant Christian mystic of the 20th century.
His reputation preceded him enormously. He became incredibly famous for his readings and his healings.
He was unlike any other psychic who could do one ability at a time. He could predict the future, or he could heal someone all at once. There is no one like Edgar Cayce before and after him.
Edgar Cayce was born on a southern farm in 1877 and came from humble beginnings. But over his lifetime, he would become world-renowned, recording more than 14,000 psychic readings, making him one of the most prolific and documented mediums of the 20th century. And according to Cayce's friends and family, his unique gifts were on display from a very early age.
Edgar Cayce was my great-grandfather, and there are these stories that I heard for my whole life about the breathtaking level of his psychic ability. From a pretty early age, his psychic ability and his psychic experiences were happening for him. The stories that I would hear is that the way that his psychic ability kind of formally started was through a very particular experience that happened one afternoon when he was outside by a creek where he had built this little fort, and he was reading the Bible. From a very young age, he discovered the Bible and he loved to read it, and he heard a woman's voice call his name. And he looked up, and it was a figure of a woman who had wings.
This feminine apparition told him that he possessed some kind of extra gift of insight, and he was asked what did he want in life, and he responded that he wanted to find ways to help people. And this angelic apparition said to him, "Thy wish shall be granted." And thereafter, Edgar's psychical or clairvoyant abilities seemed to increase.
Cayce claimed that this winged visitor soon returned and began to instruct him on how to unlock his incredible psychic abilities.
His father was quizzing him on the spelling words that he needed to have memorized for school the next day, and he was getting increasingly frustrated, and Edgar was feeling defeated and sad and very tired. And finally, Edgar heard a voice inside that was the same voice that he had heard the day before at the creek, this woman's voice who said, "If you'll sleep on your book, we can help you."
Edgar went to sleep with a school book under his pillow, and he awoke the ability to have memorized all the key lessons that appeared in the school book. And this uneven student went to school the next day, and he aced it.
Something was guiding him. What was this angel? Who was this angel? Obviously, we cannot say, but Cayce was being influenced by otherworldly intelligences.
Is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, that Edgar Cayce was visited by an otherworldly being? And did he truly possess psychic abilities? According to those who have studied Edgar Cayce's life and readings, some of the most compelling evidence can be found by examining accounts of his astounding ability to both diagnose and cure illnesses.
Edgar spent his first 20 years focusing
focusing on health readings for people, but he didn't go and examine the people. He could access them clairvoyantly and actually see the condition of their body, the blood condition, the injuries they had had, and start to prescribe a way of overcoming the ailment they were dealing with. And he would give them sometimes very strange formulas to get through toward healing.
Casey had no medical training and had not even attended high school. He claimed that visions of the past, present, and future would come to him while in a self-induced trance. It was this practice that earned him the nickname, the Sleeping Prophet.
Edgar Casey would lay down on a couch and put himself into a self-induced hypnotic state. And his breathing would deepen and his eyelids would flutter like they do when we're in REM sleep. He would wake up and have absolutely no memory of what he had said.
Although Edgar Casey performed his readings while in a trance, a rare audio recording revealed that he spoke clearly and gave very specific instructions when providing health remedies.
Take the together. Respond into this focus. How to fight and communicate. One, thanks and effective service. Second, hearing that direction. Not from the surgical theory. Fourth, she does just from the stick and send judgment for the services.
One of the most amazing health stories in the Casey psychic files is his own wife, Gertrude. She contracted tuberculosis. That was the kiss of death in those days.
Gertrude asked Edgar to please give her a reading to see if she could get better, and Edgar was terrified that what he might say might cause this person who is the most precious to him harm in any way. But at that point, she was going to die, according to the doctors, and so he did give her the reading. And there were suggestions that were given in that reading for her getting better.
Here's the formula. You had to get a 2-gallon charred oak keg, and you had to put heated apple brandy in it and inhale the fumes deeply into your lungs. All she did was inhale the fumes coming out of the keg, and she recovered from tuberculosis. And then he started prescribing this method to many other people, and it worked. It worked.
Many of the natural remedies Casey prescribed are still used today. And in fact, he was one of the first people to introduce holistic medicine to the Western world, in which body, mind, and spirit are considered together in the management and prevention of illnesses. But if some otherworldly intelligence was responsible for helping him to develop his psychic abilities, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, what could have been the purpose? Perhaps further clues can be found by examining Casey's incredible predictions about events that would change the course of humanity. A prodigy in numerous psychic arts from a young age, Edgar Casey quickly rose to fame in the early 20th century as one of the most sought-after clairvoyants of his time.
Casey first became known nationally through a story on the cover of the New York Times in fall of 1910. The headline was, "Illiterate Man Becomes a Doctor When Hypnotized." Casey was not illiterate, but nor did he have much formal schooling beyond his early grade school years.
He went from being a fairly humble farm boy to being a superstar. And it's astonishing how quickly Edgar Casey became famous and influential. He didn't want it.
Although he did not aspire to it, Edgar Casey found both fame and fortune in the 1920s. Word quickly spread about his ability to not only diagnose and to treat illnesses, but also to predict the future. Casey's eerily accurate readings drew the attention of thousands of believers, including high-profile clients like Thomas Edison, Harry Houdini, and George Gershwin.
There's even evidence that President Woodrow Wilson had a reading with him, and indeed other high-ranking members of the US government.
Casey also claimed to receive visions concerning major world events, and one in particular would forever change public perception of his supposed talents. It was a prediction of a pivotal moment in US history, the stock market crash of 1929.
In 1925, Edgar Casey told his biggest financial supporter to sell all his stocks. He started to unload his stocks, but the market kept going up and his friends were making so much money he bought back in. And then in October of 1929, he lost everything.
In a matter of weeks, the world sank into the Great Depression, just as Edgar Casey predicted. But this would not be the only time Edgar Casey's visions seemed to accurately predict major events in history.
In the mid-1930s, Edgar forecast a great conflict on the horizon of world events. This was often seen as presaging the invasion of Poland and the events that led to the Second World War.
Early on in his career as a psychic, Edgar Casey would become disturbed when a reading predicted something ominous, whether it had to do with a single individual or an event that affected the entire world. As a devout Christian, he worried that his visions might be coming from a dark place.
It was deeply unsettling and scary for him. At a certain point, he fully committed to it, but there was a number of years where he was picking it up and putting it back down, wanting to have nothing to do with it. A constant question that he was working with is this okay? Can I devote myself to this and be the type of Christian that I know myself to be? As more and more time went on, to hear people say to him how he had literally saved their life or their child's life or their family member's life, that was really important to him.
In 1931, Casey told his followers that he now knew the source of his remarkable insights, and that they came to him from a vast otherworldly repository of information called the Akashic Record.
The Akashic Record, which is a Hindu terminology, is this ethereal cloud that exists throughout the universe in which any and all knowledge, past, present, and future, is contained, and some individuals are able to tap into this timeless resource of knowledge.
In Hindu mythology, there are several instances where conversation takes place between some entity up in the sky and here on Earth, and that conversation, that voice, is called Akash Vani. Akash meaning sky, Vani meaning speech. So I think in the case of Edgar Casey, he is hearing some voices from up there, where he is channeling, trying to get the source.
Throughout history, there are numerous famous examples of people who professed to access knowledge from another realm. The great 15th century artist and inventor, Leonardo da Vinci, wrote that he would stare at the flickering light from a candle to enter a meditative state in which he could access new ideas. In the early 20th century, genius mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan claimed that complex equations were communicated to him in his dreams. said that his revelation for how to harness alternating current came to him in a moment when he felt that some outside source had entered his consciousness.
Nikola Tesla claimed that he would envision these many inventions that he created. So it's possible that Tesla himself was tapping into the Akashic record, just like Edgar Casey was talking about.
It is as if our great thinkers are tapping into something that is there and beyond our understanding. And that perhaps people of a certain intellect are able to open to that. And their genius is to see beyond what we are seeing.
Is it possible that certain individuals throughout human history, like Edgar Casey, have unique ability to access the infinite knowledge of the universe? And if so, did these mystics come to this gift by chance? Or could they have been chosen for it?
Because we know that Edgar Casey had an incredible visitation from what he described as an angel. Could this connection be something that was given to him by higher intelligences, perhaps by extraterrestrials or extra-dimensional beings? Yes, of course, absolutely.
Because of his psychic abilities, he was able then to communicate all kinds of esoteric ideas. But yet they were coming from a very normal person. You have to wonder if Edgar Casey wasn't chosen, say, by extraterrestrials to be a messenger to mankind.
If there is a reason that Edgar Casey was chosen by an otherworldly intelligence to receive this knowledge, just what was that purpose? There are some ancient astronaut theorists who believe that Edgar Casey was chosen not only to share visions of the future, but to convey lost knowledge from our ancient past. Virginia Beach, Virginia, 1932. Edgar Casey calls a gathering of his closest supporters for a series of special readings. Up until this time, Casey's readings most often involved future predictions or remedies to heal the sick. But on this occasion, he will instead be called upon to access the ancient past.
One of Edgar Casey's fascinating readings was about the Great Pyramid of Egypt. The Great Pyramid is on the dollar bill, and so everybody who has a dollar bill in their pocket is carrying around a picture of the Great Pyramid. It's one of the most famous structures in the world. And yet there's so much about the Great Pyramid of Egypt which remains a mystery to this day.
The 480-foot tall Great Pyramid of Giza consists of over 2 million stone blocks, weighing a total of 6 million tons. It stands perfectly level and is more closely aligned to true north than any other structure on Earth, built either in ancient or modern times.
The Great Pyramid of Giza is a marvel of architecture. It's something that you just cannot replicate today. Which makes you wonder, how did they have all this knowledge and what kind of knowledge they had?
According to most Egyptologists, the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed during a 20-year period by order of the Pharaoh Khufu, sometime around 2500 BC. But when Edgar Casey was asked about the origins of the Great Pyramid in 1932, he placed the iconic structure at a much earlier date.
Edgar Casey said that it was actually built somewhere around 10,490 BC. 8,000 years before traditional Egyptologists said it was constructed. Now, in the 1930s, this is an astounding statement to make. 8,000 years before.
The Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed during a 20-year period by order of the Pharaoh Khufu, sometime around 2500 BC. But when Edgar Casey was asked about the origins of the Great Pyramid in 1932, he placed the iconic structure at a much earlier date.
Edgar Casey said that it was actually built somewhere around 10,490 BC. 8,000 years before traditional Egyptologists said it was constructed. Now, in the 1930s, this is an astounding statement to make.
Casey also claimed that the Sphinx, which sits near the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau, dates to this same period, which geologist Robert Schoch believes is accurate based on his own examination of the monument and water erosion that can be found around the base of the structure.
After studying the Sphinx in great detail, looking at the weathering and erosion, I've come to the conclusion that in fact the Sphinx has its origins going back to before the end of the last ice age, so around 10,000 or so BCE. This happens to be the date that Edgar Casey was talking about.
Could it be that Edgar Casey's reading was correct, and that the extraordinary structures that stand on the Giza Plateau were built more than 12,000 years ago? During his reading, Casey also made the astounding claim that the builders of the pyramid were somehow able to make the giant stone blocks float through the air.
Edgar Casey said the structure was built using powers that we don't understand. He said the ancient Egyptians knew how to float stone in the air like we know how to float iron on water. And people still wonder if it's levitation, if it's gas balloons. We don't know for sure.
Casey's readings concerning the ancient past were not limited to just Egypt. He also commented on another topic that is well known to ancient astronaut theorists, the Bible's book of Ezekiel. In this text, the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel describes a fiery chariot with wheels within wheels, descending from the sky in a whirlwind.
Edgar Casey talked about Ezekiel in the Bible and the spinning wheels being a visitation by an extraterrestrial craft. Casey really seems to include ETs in the timeline of human evolution. He talks about extraterrestrials showing up in Mayan times as well.
Casey said that there were undiscovered pyramids in Mexico, the home of the Mayan Empire. A number of lost pyramids have been discovered in Mexico since that time. And as recently as 2022, archaeologists uncovered the ruins of an ancient Maya city filled with pyramids in the Yucatan Peninsula.
What I find fascinating about Edgar Casey is the depth and the breadth of his insights, his readings, and how it's been corroborated by independent researchers. He not only talked about ancient history and the pyramids, but one area in particular is his work on the Essenes, the Jewish mystics, out of the order out of which Jesus and John the Baptist emerged. In the 1930s, he was discussing the Essenes and telling us what the Essenes believed. Nobody knew anything about this before 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered and then translated in the 1950s.
In Casey's readings, he provided a number of details about the Essenes, such as his claim that in the Essene society, men and women worked and lived together. At the time of the reading, scholars believed that the Essenes were a monastic society composed exclusively of men. However, in 1951, more than 6 years after Casey's death, archaeologists discovered evidence that Casey was right. Men and women lived together in the Essene society.
Come to find out, Edgar Casey and his readings precisely match what the Dead Sea Scrolls said. How can that be? Edgar Casey must have tapped in to the past somehow, some mysterious way.
Is it possible that Edgar Casey was given a vision of humankind's long-lost past? And if so, Could there have been a reason this secret knowledge was revealed to him? Perhaps further clues can be found by examining another vision Casey had concerning ancient Egypt and a secret repository of knowledge hidden beneath the paw of the Sphinx. On July 1st, 1932, while in a trance, Edgar Casey made an astonishing claim that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built more than 12,000 years ago. He